angels, they are swimming in this ocean and they still can't find no shore.
Well, good morning. How we doing? Okay. A couple of you had your coffee. I said, good morning. How we doing? Yeah. Would you guys stand with us? We're going to sing today. Feel free to do what you got to do. Here we go.
It's always like springtime with you, making all things new. Your light is breaking through the dark. This love, it is sweeter than wine, bringing joy, new life. Your hope is rising like the dark. Oh, yeah. We're coming alive in you, oh yeah. Sing that again. It's always like springtime with you, making all things new. Your light is breaking through the dark. This love, it is sweeter than wine, bringing joy, new life. Your hope is rising like the dawn. Oh, this is what you do. This is what you do. You make me come alive. This is what you do. This is what you do. You make me come alive. This is what you do. This is what you do. You make me come alive. This is what you do. This is what you do. You make me come alive. You make come alive. You make me 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 come alive. Yeah. Oh, 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 this is what you do, this is what you do. You make me come alive, this is what you do, this is what you do. You make me come alive, this is what you do, this is what you do. You make me come alive, this is what you do, this is what you do. It's a new season, it's a new season. It's a new season, and it's a new season. You make all things new, all things new. You make me come alive. 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 Yeah. Oh, 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 come thou fount of living water, tune my heart to sing your name. Streams of trouble never ceasing, and call for song, boundless praise. As the deer pants for the waters, so my soul it longs for you. All my tears have been upon day by day, only through. Oh, my soul, you fill
your waves crash over me. Let your goodness like a feather and bind my heart, broken heart to thee. In the night, your song is with me. Day by day, you hold me fast. Oh, my soul, hope in Jesus, and you shall love your God at last. Come thou fount of living water, tune my heart to sing your name. Streams of trouble never ceasing, and call for songs of loudest praise. Deep calls to deep, waves of unbelief, and breakers crash and bring me falling to my knees. And goes on and on and on. And where is my God? And my salvation is in you, for you I love. And deep calls to deep, waves of unbelief, breakers crash and bring me falling to my knees. It goes on and on and on. Where is my God? My salvation is in you, for you I love. Come thou fount of living water, and tune my heart to sing your name. Streams of trouble never ceasing, and call for songs. Come thou fount of living water, tune my heart to sing your name. Streams of trouble never ceasing, you call for songs of loudest praise. You call for songs loudest praise.
Well, good morning. You all can have a seat. My name is David. I am one of the pastors here on staff. Just want to welcome you this morning and get you all up to speed on some things that are going on in the near future. The very first that I want to tell you about, a few weeks ago, you got to meet a new friend of ours, Dr. Leah Robinson, very prominent theologian in this region. At least I think so. And she has a new book coming out. She mentioned that a few weeks ago. There's going to be a release party at Petty Thieves, the official brewery of Watershed, just a few weeks from now, so not this upcoming week, but the following week. And it's going to be a lot of fun. If you have never been to a live podcast recording hosted by Trip Fuller, you're in for a treat. It is basically a comedy show mixed with some zesty theological nerdiness. If you know Trip at all, you know that he will appreciate that I said zesty. But it's going to be a good time. If you follow that QR code, it'll take you to the Eventbrite page where you can sign up. Here's how it's going to work. There is a very nominal cost to this event. You can still go to Petty Thieves for free that evening and sort of just hang out like 20 feet away from us. But if you want to sit by us, you can pay the nominal fee and just have all sorts of zesty theological goodness. If you are excited about this announcement, the one that I just gave you, then you will be even more excited about this second announcement, because this summer we have the opportunity to host Adult VBS. Yeah, wow, you're really excited about that. I also am really excited about that. We are going to nerd out with the word out, everyone. It is going to be super funny. That counts for 2, Lewis.
No.
No, but really what this is going to be, it's going to be a just celebration of theological awesomeness. A few of the people up there, Dr. Jennifer Garcia Bashaw, good friend of ours, Dr. Peter Enns is going to be there. A little bird, and by that I literally mean Twitter, told me that Pete might be hanging out with us that Sunday as well. But this is going to be the end of June, so June 30th or 31st. I don't remember the knuckle thing, how many days there are in June. But the last day of June, which is a Friday, and the first day of July, which is a Saturday. And there's Pete telling us that there is a discount code that is super secret for us here at Watershed. Here's the deal. That code will work for the entire sign-up period. However, the price of the event goes up by like $20 or something tomorrow. So your incentive that I'm giving you now, because you chose to show up this morning, great decision on your part, is to go ahead and sign up immediately so that you get like the cheapest price possible, like the early bird rate plus the Watershed discount. So you can follow that QR code. This is also, you can find this on our website and on our app, but this is going to be a really, really, really good time. So please show up. It's going to be one of the most fun things we've ever done here. Next, Blair, our wonderful family pastor, wants to know what you think, parents, guardians, people who are aware that children exist. We would love to hear from you, and we have chosen to incentivize you. And as a parent of kids, this incentive is going to be really, really important to many of you. If you fill out this survey, go to that QR code, fill it out, you will be entered into a drawing to win free babysitting. Yeah, right? Yeah, okay. Everyone's listening now. Free babysitting from Blair herself, very qualified person. We put her in charge of all families here at Watershed. So if you are part of a family, Blair's your boss. And she wants you to fill this out so that just so we can get some feedback for what we're doing family ministry-wise, some things that maybe you're longing for as a parent, as a guardian, things that you might want to learn about, et cetera, et cetera. So please follow the QR code, fill that out, and it would be most appreciated. All right, almost done here, I promise. So a couple things coming up. Liberation Identity. This is a brand new experience that we're offering. So if you've gone to a reclamation experience that I've led, where we get to dive a little deeper into some theological categories. Very similar experience here, but we're going to be diving into, yes, theology, but also questions of justice, of liberation, of emancipation. And I'm excited to announce that this is going to be co-facilitated. So if you're one of those people who doesn't want to hear me talk a lot, this is for you, because I'm going to be co-facilitating with our kindred community, our LGBTQIA group here at Watershed. So it's going to be a 4-week exploration of identity and how that relates to our collective liberation. It's going to be a good time. So please sign up for that, unless, like all of you should sign up for this, unless you're brand new here, in which case you should sign up for this thing on the next slide, which is Preface. Preface is really what we want to be the first step for everyone who comes into Watershed. Figure out, what is this place? Why do I say some of the things that I say from stage? Why do some people who have been here for a while knowingly laugh when I say some of those things? You'll get all of those answers and more at Preface. But really the most important piece of it is the relational piece. This isn't going to be lecture-y or teachy. This is an opportunity for you to discuss with others your faith journey, hear a little bit about the spiritual sort of evolution over time of Watershed, and most crucially, you get to meet some people who you might continue to go along that faith journey with going forward. So for both Liberation and Preface, childcare is provided at no cost, so you have no excuses, and we would just invite you to come, all right? And as we say every week, none of this would be possible without the continued ownership of the work that Watershed does here. not just financially, but many of you volunteer. We're going to be talking about that more in this upcoming series. But as we say weekly, our goal is to increase the reoccurring giving here at Watershed, because reoccurring giving is the thing that allows us to make plans. It's the thing that allows us to dream a little bit, invite fun people like Pete Enns and Jennifer Garcia Bashaw to come and share their wisdom with us. And so thank you to all of you who continue to support the work and the mission of Watershed here, and we continue to invite you to do that either through the QR code, through the app, through the website, through the boxes in the back for the old school in the room. Just thank you for continuing to support us in this way. Now, as I transition off the stage here, in a moment I'm going to invite someone up. This new series that we're kicking off today, nevertheless, it's been a long time coming. It's been one that we've sort of planning, dreaming about for some time now. And kind of at the crux, the foundation of this series, you might not know it yet, but it's going to be stories. It's going to be your stories as well. We're going to hear from a number of you, and then that is going to snowball. It's going to continue through the rest of this year into next year, just listening to, hearing, and elevating your stories. And there was one story in particular, kind of right at the beginning as we began to just sort of brainstorm and dream about this series that really sort of drove, in many ways inspired, kind of where we ended up going and the plans that we've made. And so I want to invite my friend Anthony up now to share that story. So please welcome Anthony Bittner.
Hi, folks. Good morning. Depending on who introduced me to you, I'm Anthony or Tony, or for a couple of you, Anfus. For as long as I can remember, my life has been an unforgiving cycle of extreme highs and lows. I have been haunted by a constant spiral of anxiety and shame and depression that has impacted nearly every aspect of my life. And I've self-medicated in a host of unhealthy ways, all to avoid confronting an unnamed pain that sat inside my mind and my body. I've lived life without purpose or intent, and without even the essence of hope that I'd ever break the cycle and find calm. During the peak of COVID, I relocated from Chicago to Charlotte, reconnecting from a favorite friend with the favorite friend from nearly 20 years ago. And Kelly and I fell in love really quickly. And soon after that, I fell crazy in love with her 3 kids, Nyla, Dashel, and Owen. I started to experience a new level of happiness and fulfillment, but right on cue, a series of self-sabotaging choices caught up to me, and an all too familiar unraveling took over all things. Relationships were lost and hearts were broken. Not too long before that, I had entered the doors of Watershed for the very first time, and I came with incredible discomfort and hesitation. I'd never intended to enter a church again if I wasn't being paid to sing or play my horn, but I would follow Kelly anywhere, so I followed her in these doors. And when I left that day, I was intrigued enough to keep my mind and my heart open to coming back. And I did return. A few times before the unraveling and a few times after. I attended Preface and listened as folks shared vulnerable stories about their own faith journeys. And the conversation resonated in a way that made me begin to feel like Watershed was a safe space. I was given permission to be comfortable with the discomfort I had in Christianity. So while I was working through the aftermath of what I'm calling the unraveling, I joined ACA, which is a 12-step program for adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families. And just as I had on my first visit to Watershed, I walked into that building with a whole lot of trepidation. But I did walk in. And as we read through the big red book and folks shared their stories, I found myself all over those pages and all over those stories. In an instant, my life started to make sense. I came to understand that because of the trauma I experienced in a toxic home where my stepfather was an alcoholic, The cycle I had found myself in for decades was inevitable and inescapable. At the same time, I came to know that on the other side of these 12 steps, as long as I committed to the work, was salvation. The very next Sunday, I came back to Watershed, this time with my friend Avi at my side. And as the last song was sung by Austin, I just fell into my seat and started to sob. Tears and snot and moans and years of suppressed pain just came pouring out of me. But I knew I was safe to just sit here and let everything out that needed to come out. Avi sat with me. Kim comforted me. Her beautiful wife, Larissa, smiled that sunshine smile. And Des reminded me that in him, I had a friend. And then an adorable little girl who I did not know came right up to me, and she bent really low down, and she peeked up through my fingers as I was crying, and in the most sincere and curious way, just asked me why I was crying. I couldn't help but smile through the tears. For so many years, I've been searching for hope, a hope that I'd find a way off the roller coaster, a hope that I'd one day live life free from the weight of anxiety and shame and fear, and a hope that I'd one day reconnect to my faith in a way that reconciled with my doubts, with my values, and with my curiosity. And friends, I have to say that I have hope in abundance. Thanks to ACA, I have hope that the recovery and healing is not only possible, but it waits for me with open arms. And because of Watershed, I have hope in so much more. I've found an understanding of God that resonates deep in my soul. I know now that God is in the circle of fellow adult children that share every Wednesday night without fear of judgment and listen with grace and compassion. I know God to be in those who love me so deeply that they know me to be good, even when I lay my sins out before them. I know God to be in the endless love and cuddles that I get from Kelly and Nyla and Dashel and Owen. And I certainly know God is in those moments when Kim Honeycutt pauses her need to make it about herself for just 1 minute and says, "Hey friend, how are you doing today?" And I know God to be in the kindness, in the safety, and the curiosity, the energy, and the fellowship of this Watershed community. So thank you.
There is hope in our eyes when we truly see each other, like the light of countless stars. We are not afraid of the dark, 'cause there is hope in our hearts. Every single beat we feel it to the ends of the earth. Our echo carries on. Oh, we are sacred, we are strong. Oh, we are beautiful, we belong. Please hear our unheard song. There is hope in our voice when we listen to each other, barriers disappear with every story told. Oh, we are sacred, we are strong. Oh, we are beautiful, we belong. Please hear our unheard song. There is hope in our eyes when we truly see each other. We raise our flag, lift our voice. Oh, we are sacred, we are strong. Beautiful, we belong. Oh, we are worthy, we are true. Oh, there are no borders from this view. Please help us raise our flag. There is hope in our eyes when we truly see each other.
You guys are hysterical watching you watch a video from up here. I just want you to know that. My name is Matt, and I'm the lead pastor at Watershed. Welcome to the first weekend of this series. I want to begin this series and this morning with a question. And the question is this: why are you here? Why are you here? You could have been anywhere this morning, right? You could have stayed home. You could have slept in. You could have gone for a walk, gone for a hike. Could have cleaned your house, cut the lawn. You could have binge watched that Netflix series you've been waiting to binge watch, finished a book, walked your dog, washed the car, balanced your checkbook, went to the gym, gone to yoga. But you didn't. You came here. Why? Why are you here? Why does Garrett Boyd, where you at, Garrett? Shoot a hand up. Thank you, Garrett. Why does Garrett drive almost 40 minutes from Statesville? Why do the Plants drive almost 40 minutes from Midland? The Painters, 40 minutes from Denver. The Kings, 40 minutes from Kannapolis. Why does Brittany and Rustin Terry drive 54 minutes from Clover, South Carolina? Wow. And not only this, they have to drive through Booger Town to get here. The only family allowed to complain about coming to Watershed is the Terry family moving forward.
because they have to drive through Booger Town to get here. I'm teasing. I'm sure Booger Town is wonderful. If you have family and friends in Booger Town, it's okay. I'm just picking. I'm just getting started. I am a world-class dad jokester. It's gonna, you just hang on to your hat. Why do they do this? Why do you do this? Why did you inconvenience yourself today? What compelled you to go through the trouble of leaving your home to make your way here today? Why are you here? Well, we started trying to answer this question a few months ago as a staff. We sat in front of this whiteboard and we began to recount and recall all the different conversations we've been a part of with you, whether that's in Reclamation or Preface or on a Sunday or in Greenhouse or Student Ministries. And it's like this board started to fill up and it grew like 20 different reasons all over the map in some instance. And then we started to try to distill down, well, what's the undercurrent here? Like if you had to drill it down to one overarching reason, what would it be? And the more we looked at this, the more we reflected on it, hope became the reason. At some level, you're here because there's at least a mustard seed size hope that pulls you towards this space. And so for the next 4 weeks, we're going to explore this idea a little bit. We're going to spend talking about how hope is central to why someone would choose community. We're going to talk about how community can animate hope, how reclamation can instill hope, and how hope collectively invites us into something. And so that's kind of what you're in store for the next several weeks. And I want to begin this morning by saying that hope can be complicated as an idea. I think it's a lot like some of the other ethereal language that we throw around, like we throw at each other when we really don't know what to say when things are difficult or things are struggling. And it actually, you can create more harm than good with it sometimes, you know? Especially if someone is really in a tough spot. You just got to have hope. Don't lose hope. You know, hang on to hope. Things will work out. Things always work out. You're overreacting. Don't ever say that to somebody. You're overreacting. Sometimes we use verses from the Bible, right? Like we're conditioned to throw these platitudes towards people. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. All things work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to God's purpose. Just have hope. Now, I want to say that there's nothing inherently wrong with anything I just said. There's nothing morally wrong. In fact, not only have I used that type of verbiage, I've received it, and at times it's actually felt good. It's been encouraging. Having said that, though, sometimes things don't work out. Sometimes the worst happens. Sometimes the story doesn't end well. Sometimes we hope for something, it never arrives. Sometimes we hope for something, it arrives, and we're thinking, why in the world were we ever hoping that would arrive? Anytime language is used as sort of this incantation or some sort of antibiotic to whatever painful situation is in front of you or someone else, if you're not careful, you can unintentionally dismiss your own pain or the real pain of others that are experiencing something difficult. I think this can be especially true for marginalized communities, oppressed communities. One of my favorite author theologians, you've heard me say this before, is Miguel de la Torre. And de la Torre describes hope as sometimes a control mechanism for the masses, a way of domestication for people who are in oppressive situation. He says, hope works very well when you are among the conquerors. Hope is like this carrot that gets dangled out in front of a group of people who are struggling with everything they could, not just to find a way for themselves, but find a way for themselves together. And so hope, this carrot of like, well, if you just work a little harder, if you just fall in line, if you just remain patient, if you have a calm and civil discourse and dialogue, well, then things will get better. Really, we want to work with you to get things better. There's this injustice will start to be eradicated and systems will be dismantled. Heaven will finally come to earth. Maybe. But will it? Will it ever fully materialize when you're talking about oppressive systems and people who are marginalized by systems designated for self-preservation for the wealthy and the powerful at the expense of the poor and the powerless? Hope is complicated, right? I think hope is complex too. And this is a little different path that I want to talk about this morning, so hang with me here. Our default way of showing up to reality is often through a lens of separation. Like somehow we are our own entity, our own autonomous presence, and we're just experiencing the external world as though nothing is really going on beyond just what we observe or describe. There's one of my favorite movies is Moneyball, and there's this scene where the Peter Brand character, played by Jonah Hill, is describing a new way of understanding how to put teams together. And he's telling this to the Oakland A's GM, Billy Beane, played by Brad Pitt. And he says this, he says, listen, there is an epidemic failure within the game to understand what is really happening. And I think that's kind of true when we talk about how hope gets animated and how something gets generated out of nothing. This is a picture of me at Food Lion standing in front of a freezer section in front of a box of White Castles. I grew up on White Castles. White Castles are what I describe as disgustingly delicious or deliciously disgusting. You choose. I don't know how to say it any other way. But we would go to White Castle restaurants when I was in college at like 1 a.m. in the morning after the bars closed because it was cheap and you could get a lot of it. And so my friends would pile on these things back in those days. I thoroughly enjoyed them, and I still do, much to the chagrin of my wife, who is like, you can't ride with me in the same car if you're going to eat those. But it's odd to walk into a Food Lion in Charlotte, North Carolina and see these because you have to drive like 5 or 6 hours to get White Castles. And so it feels random at some level. But it's really not. It's not because when I go to the frozen food section and I pick up a box of White Castles and I check out, there's an ecosystem that is involved in that entire process. I am communicating something and something is listening. I am one of a vast array of sophisticated elements that create that system, the system of Food Lion, that then also ends up putting more White Castle cheeseburgers on the shelf. And I don't hold all of that power by myself. I'm not buying that many White Castles. Some of you are like, that dude buys a lot of White Castles. They're in stores all over North Carolina. No, there's a community or a group of people that are parts that are playing a role within the context of the whole. And it informs how that entity known as Food Lion functions. And I'm not just one part of the entity. There's cashiers, there's delivery drivers, there's people who stock the shelves, there's farmers and factory workers and accountants and people who do marketing and CEOs and banks. There's a whole flurry of stuff that makes up the whole of Food Lion. If I or everyone else stopped going to Food Lion would cease to exist. If we all just stopped buying White Castles, then White Castles would no longer be on the shelf. And I'm describing an organism per se, a system that is interacting with me not as separate, even though it feels that way when I walk through the sliding glass doors. It's a whole system, a whole ecosystem that is in and of itself communicating to me. I am communicating to it. I am changing it by the way that I participate, by the way I show up and have presence. And it is changing me, although not in the best, healthiest ways once I eat the White Castle. You can apply the same logic to traffic, right? We talk like traffic is something that we don't create while we're in it. This traffic is awful. If everyone would just get off the roads, but we are the traffic. We are as much a part of the problem as we're a part of the problem, and we act like We're not. We have special status and all that as being separate. Same thing could be true for like the internet. Every time you click, every time you and I share, every time we download something, there's something listening, right? In a disturbing fashion, if you watch any Netflix documentaries. Something is listening, something is adjusting itself and spitting back to you the thing that it thinks that you want to be hearing, the thing that you want to engage in. And so we're never having our own experience. We're never really separate. We're actually a part of a greater whole, informing, being informed, changing and being changed in the process. This is true with relationships and community as well. If you are a part of a relationship, if you're in a relationship, and this person tells the same story every time you're together, and you're like, dear God in heaven, are they always going to share this story? And you just let them do it. Well, the way your presence is being placed in that situation, you're continuing to give that permission. And so you're creating the environment that at the end is frustrating you. But there's a symbiosis that's taking place in that. The same thing is true for community. Your time, your energy, your resources is a part of this symbiotic relationship between all the parts within the context of the whole that makes up that relationship. Now, it's interesting. There's these two stories in the scriptures, and as I was thinking about all of this, they sort of surfaced for me, and I thought, I think we're seeing a little bit of that sort of show up in the pages of these stories that these ancient writers were trying to describe. So the first one, you're probably familiar with it. It's the rich young ruler, right? Like this wealthy, powerful young Israelite guy shows up to Jesus and says, hey, what do I need to do to inherit the kingdom of heaven? What must I do to inherit the very best life that God offers? That's the simple translation. And you remember Jesus' response. Sell all of your possessions, give the proceeds, the money to the poor, and then come follow me. And he's not describing like just start believing different things. He's like, no, literally, come with me. And where would he have gone? Into his community, right? Into his group, in with his disciples. And so this man contemplates about this, but it's a bridge too far. Instead of connection and community, he chooses separation and isolation, disconnects, and the outcome is he walks away sad. Now, interesting enough, a little bit later, another story in the book of Acts is told where this same phrase about possessions being sold surfaces again. That's interesting. But this time, in this story, there's a group of people who are in duress. There are people who are suffering the constant threat of persecution and poverty and crucifixion and enslavement. They're in crisis and they're just trying to figure out how do we hang on in a world that seems like it's built against us? What does it mean to have safety and shelter and food and our needs to be cared for? And instead of making the decision to separate, this group makes the decision to come together. And it says all the believers were together and had everything in common. Instead of holding on to the thing that creates the obstruction for connection, they let go. And they sell property and possessions, and they give to anyone who had need. Now, do you see the juxtaposition here, the comparison? In the first story, invitation into the whole as a part is rejected, separation is chosen, despair, the outcome. In the second story, separation is rejected, and interdependence, collaboration, shared responsibility, engagement, collectivity are chosen. And instead of despair, you see a completely different, inspiring picture. And the author says that every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. There was something completely different at play in the decision to see themselves as part of something and to be a part of something, to engage and push their chips to the middle of the table, so to speak. And simply put, in the second story, the engagement with one another animated life and animated hope. It took Watershed almost 15 years to write its mission statement. You know, we like to pace ourselves here, apparently. Every time we thought we had it nailed down, we're like, that's it. Something would happen. Some new idea would surface. Some experience would happen. We would become aware or awake to something. And we're like, oh, wow, okay, wait a minute. I don't think that language fits, because now we have to edit. Now we have to go through adjustment and implementation and new learning. And within all of our flawed humanity here, within all of our imperfections, I often describe Watershed as a beautiful mess. Within the beautiful mess, in spite of all this, each time it happened, it felt like we would click towards becoming more of our most authentic self as a church. Again, work in progress, and with all of its flaws. More true to ourselves, more true to the way we wished the world existed, more true to the way that we think, we speculate that Jesus would long for the world to exist. And what happened was, as we started to realize that who we were was really bound up in the process of becoming. Hence, our language, our lexicon, so to speak, began to mimic this process of becoming. Our mission statement became the language of becoming. Watershed is a community, awakening, struggling, and loving together as though a different world is possible. And this is the best, the closest language we come to being able to articulate who are we? Who are we as a church? And I wanted to name this on the front side of this series because while hope is complicated and complex, if you had to distill this process down to one animating notion, if you had to distill it to the collectivity that mirrors 20 reasons on a whiteboard in an office in the various iterations of ourselves, as well as this statement, again, the animating notion is hope. It's hope. And so here's the thing. Part of what we're going after in this series is not just good information or good stories. We're actually going to ask something of you every week when you show up here. We're attempting to say, how do you press hope into the DNA of a community? What are the practical ways of doing this? We're going to make an audacious statement of asking something from you in ways at times that we've never had the audacity to ask. But we're trusting that you're starting to see, or you will start to see, that you're not separate. Like you're a part of this, that as you are here, you are informing this community is informing you, you are changing it, and it is changing you. And you are a part of this symbiotic relationship that exists between ideas and emotions and structures and outcomes and opportunities and people here in this community. And so we're going to get started really slow and small this morning because I don't want to freak anybody out about what we're inviting you to do. And I think probably when you hear me say these, you're going to be like, oh, okay, that's kind of like no-brainer stuff. But let's get started and let's go small first. All right, here's the first thing. Would you come more? Will you be here more? Like, some of you come once a month. Can you come twice? Some of you come twice. Can you come 3 times? Some of you serve twice, but you don't come for a 3rd time. And you rob Watershed of something when you're not here, because we're trusting that your presence is creating something within the larger ecosystem of who we are. Will you come earlier? Like, our band is working really hard to shut things down at 9:30. There's coffee in the back. Will you stay longer? Will you linger? If you've noticed, we've been actually programming that in after our Sunday gatherings. That's because we're leading up to this conversation. If you have kids, go get your kids and come back in here. And it's okay if they're running crazy. In my Baptist days, man, that was a sign of the presence of God, you know? It's all right. Keep them off the stage, all right? But can you be here more? We're trusting that in the organic space that we create, as relationships begin to form, as that interactivity, as that beautiful chaos starts to happen, hope will begin to emerge in that process. Will you come more? Will you make it a point to introduce yourself to someone you've never met every time you're here. Isn't that audacious? Hey, how you doing? My name's Matt. I've been here for a while. How long have you been here? Is this your first Sunday? It's so embarrassing when I ask that and they say, Matt, I've been here 10 years. I'm like, well, that's embarrassing. It's not that extreme. It's not that extreme. Expressing curiosity is a way of acknowledging someone, and it's a way of getting started in the relational process. And hospitality is the responsibility of everybody. And if you live with a view of separation, then you think that we have a hospitality team to do that. And we do have a hospitality team. But it's everyone's ilk to be curious and to connect and to say, I'm interested in knowing you, and I would love for you to know me. Will you make it a point to introduce yourself? Will you make it a point to get to know at least one person? That's a little further, right? I know David mentioned preface and reclamation and these liberation experiences, regional collectives. Blair's going to talk a little bit about that next week. But these are all spaces that we're creating for that to actually take place, and you don't need that, of course. If you see the same person 3 or 4 times on a Sunday that you've introduced yourself to, chances are you're going to start to get to know them if you keep engaging them, if you continue to engage them. I saw someone here this morning who went through preface when we were in the other building, and she went through preface, and then life kind of took her in a different direction. I saw her this morning. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's back. She's back. And I couldn't wait to talk to this person because we got to know each other over the course of a few weeks. Will you take some time to get to know one another? And if you're an introvert, I know that's tough, right? But I think all of you introverts probably sit in the same corner. Just get to know each other back there, all right? Just, do what you can, right? I'm sorry, bad pastor. And I know every single one of you are going to do this, right? Right? Okay. At the outside chance that this feels really hard and you just need a little more motivation to come more, introduce yourself, and to get to know someone, the outside chance, I want to share a quick story, or a story. I don't know how quick it'll be. This is a photograph of 2 friends of mine, Blair Miller and Jonathan Bobbitt Miller, who started coming to Watershed in, I think, around 2006. I want to say right around our first anniversary when we were uptown in Actors Theater. Jonathan and Blair had been together, been in a partnership, I think, for about 5 years. And man, they just fell in love with Watershed. Watershed fell in love with them, and it was like a glass slipper fit. What they didn't know initially was that this was before we were fully affirming and fully accepting of the gay community. And I think it was about 4 months later when we did a series on relationships and sexuality where that became very clear. And there was a bit of pain, a bit of disruption. And so we started to work with each other at some level. We started spending time with each other, and we became friends. My family and their family, our staff, so many in the community. And this went on for several years, and we just figured out a way to kind of hold the tension around all of this. I want to remind you, this is when only 3 states in the United States would legally marry same-sex couples. So this is in some ways, it feels like prehistoric times past, right? But we held this tension as best that we could. They did a killer job of doing that. And then I think about 3 or 4 years into it, I got an email from Blair. It said, hey, can we grab lunch? And I remember sitting across the table from him at Owens Bagels on South Boulevard and him saying, hey, listen, I know that North Carolina doesn't marry people, but my relationship with Jonathan, our relationship together has become so deepened over the last couple of years, in part by this community. Like, we love each other in a way that is so different than we did when we first started coming here. We want to get married. I know you and Scott have started to shift a little bit. Would you be willing to do the ceremony, one of you? And he said, oh, by the way, it's 18 months away, so you got some time to figure it out. And so we did. We took some time and we went and talked to our staff and we talked to our leadership, our elders at the time. And we were trying to ask the question, is this possible? Are we in a place to be able to do it? While this was all going on, I was wrestling. Because while I had moved from a very black and white way of understanding all of this to a very ambiguous way, my heart had already arrived. Hadn't worked it all out in my head, but it's like, I don't want to ever have to say no to this again, but I don't know how our community is going to respond. God, what should I do? Like, God, give me a sign. And it was about this time that Jonathan, who's a local EMT, was a local EMT at the time, had scheduled to go on a medical missions trip to Guatemala with a group from Watershed. And a week before he left, he was on a run. They picked up a mother who was struggling to give birth, and the baby was breech. And so on the way into the hospital, the ER doctor coached Jonathan on how to do the procedure where you turn the child in the womb. And so he does this in the ambulance, saves the mom, saves the child. What a great story, right? About a week later, he's with this team in Guatemala. They're doing this medical clinic sort of deal in the village. And one afternoon, as they're driving through the village, this little boy comes out of one of the little houses that you can see there in the background and stops the Jeep, says, please, my mom is giving birth. There's a problem. Please help her. And so the team rushes into this little house shack sort of thing. Sure enough, mom's breech. Baby's breech, rather. And so this is a picture of Jonathan and this team carrying this mom out of her home to put into a vehicle to take down this hill and to a clinic where Jonathan performs this same procedure, saves the mom, saves the child's life. About 18 months later, I go back to the same village. It was a ministry partner at the time. This is a picture of me with the mom, and this is the son whose actions of Jonathan saved this little boy, and whose name is Juan, which is John or Jonathan in Spanish, because of course you name your son after the person that saved his life. The whole time, God, are these people worthy? Seriously? They're saving lives in a foreign country. How ridiculous does it sound 10 years later? And it sounded really ridiculous then. If there's probably like 4 or 5 moments where something really shifted for me. This might have been the coup de grace. Fast forward a few months later, we're probably about 6 months away from the wedding. And I wish I could tell you that Watershed's response was courageous, but it wasn't. We said no. We said, I'm sorry, guys, we can't do this. Our community thinks we're someplace completely different than Scott and I are, or that some of our other community are. But here's what came out of that experience. They should have never stayed, but they did. They turned back towards the community and all their grief and all their pain. And in so doing, Watershed made a commitment. I will never say no again. And we were officially, intentionally in the process of figuring out what it means to become fully affirming and fully accepting of this community. Probably the most significant inflection point of this community's history. Jonathan and Blair, they moved to I think the Boston area a year or so later after that event, and they now live in D.C. This is actually a picture of them. They're 2 world-class dads. I think there's a photograph. Yeah, that's their family. 2 world-class dads to Zeke and Jameson and Cash, and there's a whole beautiful story about one of their sons in the adoption process, including a family here at Watershed that I don't have time to share. But they've been married for 10 years, and maybe you figured this out. But they're here this morning. So guys, would you stand up? Where are you at? Yeah, stand up. Don't sit down because I'm not done. I didn't tell them I was going to do this because I don't think they would have showed up this morning. This is long overdue. I know you've received private apologies for what you went through, but you deserve a public apology. So on behalf of this community, we're so sorry for what you went through. And also on behalf of this community, I don't have words for how grateful your practiced courage and your audacious hope. There were seasons during that time in our history where you believed this community could be something that I'm not sure I could believe myself. And so from the bottom of our hearts, we want to say thank you. And then this too, if you're a part of our kindred community, would you please stand? If you are a parent of a child who is in the LGBTQ plus community, would you stand? If you're here because you couldn't stomach one more day in a place that refused to love the people you love, and you're here because you're an ally, would you stand this morning? This is your legacy right here. This is your legacy. This is what hope looks like. It's 10 years later, but it's worth every tear, every ounce of sacrifice, every apology, every celebration, every minute. This is what it looks like as a community, awakening, struggling, and loving as though a different world is possible today. You can be seated. Anthony, earlier this morning, shared an amazing story. And we invited him to come back. Where are you, Anthony? Come on out. Did Anthony crush it or what? Anthony's going to sing a song to bring our time together to a close today. And would you just sit in a place of reflection? Sit in a place of contemplation around what does it mean to be a part of something? What does it mean to express gratitude? What does it mean to have hope? Anthony.
I had a dream I stood beneath an orange sky. I had a dream I stood beneath an orange sky with my brother standing by. With my brother standing by. I said, brother, you know, it's a long road we've been walking on. Yes, it is, you know, brother, it is. Such a long road we've been walking on. Oh, brother, my brother. And I had a dream I stood beneath an orange sky with my sister standing by.
my sister standing by. Here's what I know now, sister. Here's what I know now. It goes like this. In your love, my salvation lies. In your love, my salvation lies. In your love, my salvation lies. In your love, in your love, in your love. But you know I am so weary, and you know my heart's been broken now. Sometimes my mind is too strong to carry on. Too strong to carry on. But when I'm alone, and when I've thrown off the weight of this crazy stone, when I've lost all care for the things I own, that's when I miss you. That's when I miss you who are my home. You are my home now. Here's what I know now, brothers. Here's what I know now, sister. Goes like this. In your love, my salvation lies. 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 In your love, in your love, in your love now. A dream, I stood beneath an orange sky with my brothers and my sisters standing by. With my brothers and my sisters standing by now. With my brother and my sister standing by.
I told you last weekend, you got to come 4 weekends in a row, right? So Watershed, as you leave here today, may you realize the deep, profound invitation to not see yourself as separate, but to see yourself as a part of this beautiful, complex whole that we call church, that we call community, we call family. Sometimes that's the word we throw around, right? As you go today, may you begin to allow God to say to you or to speak to you around what it means for you to be here in a way that not just shows up, but is present to the others that are also adding fuel and value to what we do here at Watershed. It's weird being a founding pastor and a lead pastor at year 18 and feel like you're just getting warmed up. And that's really what this feels like. And so as you leave today, grace and peace. Thank you for coming. Don't forget those 3 things. And Jonathan and Blair and boys, would you guys mind coming on up here? And will you give them one more round of applause? If you want to come by and shake their hand and say thank you, I know they would enjoy meeting you. God bless. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you next week.
Love you, buddy.
Is that awesome?